Thanks for downloading this episode of Cork Talk with me, Tim Atkin. A weekly conversation with some of the most famous people in the world of wine. Giorgi Dakisivhili is one of Georgia's most accomplished winemakers, a man who's equally comfortable employing historic and modern techniques. One of a family of oenologists, he studied in the Ukraine and California before returning to his native Kakheti region, where he set up Dakishvili Family Vineyards. Our wide-ranging conversation covered everything from Saperavi to Qvevri, amber wines to the country's 8,000-year-old wine culture. Hello, Giorgi, and welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Tim. Good to see you. Thank you for the invitation.
It's wonderful to hear your voice as ever. You're in Georgia, aren't you? You're in Kakheti, lucky man.
Yes, I'm in Kakheti, in village Shalauri. So it's next to my town, Tel Aviv.
And what's the vintage been like so far? I mean, the growing season, it's been very strange in Europe. What's it been like in Georgia?
So it's more or less, it's okay. So we got enough rainfalls during springtime. So always we have hot weather, what is absolutely good for grape growing and for vineyards. So vineyards are in good conditions.
Because it can get pretty hot in Kakheti in the summer, can't it?
Yes, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your family, because I think they originally came, the Dakishvilis, from Chechnya in the 1750s to Georgia. Did those guys plant vineyards? I think they did, didn't they?
Yes, they did. Yeah. So my ancestors came in Georgia, so a couple of centuries ago. So, and they started a farm here in Kakheti region. And actually, so the grape growing was started by my grandfather, Simon Dakishvili, and he was making wine for church services. And here he planted ungrafted wines from Prephyloxera Georgian origin and expanse of land in the village of Pankisi Gorge in a little town called Akhmeta. So it's next to Tel Aviv, where I live at present.
And he made wine for the church, did he?
Yes. It was a story of our grape growing and winemaking. So.
And did you grow up in Kakheti? Was wine part of your life? Because your father was a winemaker as well, wasn't he?
Yes.
As well as your grandfather.
Yeah, I was born in Tel Aviv, in Kakheti, and I grew up in Tel Aviv, yes. Yes, my father was a winemaker. He was a well-known winemaker in Georgia, in Soviet Union, I would say. And he worked as a chief winemaker at red vintage wine production. So at that time, this winery was producing high-quality aged wines, particularly red wines, out of Saperavi and Cabernet Sauvignon.
And did you always want to be a winemaker when you were a kid? Did you go to the winery with your dad?
Sure, yes. So, yes, I decided to be a winemaker. So I knew exactly in my childhood that my future will be winemaking. Yeah.
So did your dad let you pick the grapes or work in the winery a bit as a kid?
No, he worked as a winemaker. So in Soviet era, it was split. So viticulture and winemaking. So he worked as a winemaker in a big state winery.
Because you studied winemaking and viticulture in Odessa, didn't you? In the Ukraine,
yes.
It's where you met your wife, Ilona, who's also an enologist. Why did you go to Ukraine to study rather than study in Georgia?
So it was one country. So those times, so Ukraine and Georgia were part of Soviet Union, and it was one country. So, and university in Odessa was very well known, and so we decided to learn enology in Odessa. Because of that, so it was
famous, was it?
famous.
Yeah. Because what was the wine scene like in Ukraine? Very different from Georgia, I would have thought, wasn't it?
Yeah. The strength of Ukrainian winemaking that time was the fortified wine direction. Yeah. So, and Crimea was very famous with sweet fortified wines. And so Georgia was famous with dry wines. Yeah.
So under the Soviets, you were told to make certain styles, yeah?
Yeah.
And I mean, Ukraine doesn't have these indigenous grape varieties, does it, that Georgia has, or certainly not as many?
No, Georgia is richer than Ukraine, having more than 525 varietals. And so, by the way, Ukraine that time and now cultivates Kakheti and Saperavi as well. So I would say that it's a significant part of Ukrainian vineyards.
And a lot of them are close to the Black Sea, aren't they, in Ukraine? Yeah. So they share that with Georgia in a sense.
Mm.
Tell us about the time also you studied at UC Davis in California, didn't you? I think you were there for a couple of months. When did you go there?
Actually, it was a practice. So I was a participant of the exchange program. So I was invited by UC Davis. So I spent over there a couple of months. So, and it was absolutely amazing experience for me. So I learned a lot. So, and I would say I brought a lot from States to Georgia.
How old were you then when you went to UC Davis?
I was 25 years old. So I was very young, and it was really a great experience for me.
And this was after you'd done your master's in enology back in Georgia, was it?
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
And what did you bring back from the States? I mean, in terms of your winemaking and approach to wine, what did you learn in particular there?
California is very strong in industry, in big industry. So I saw a lot of processes, techniques, new equipment, what was absolutely unknown in Georgia at that time. So, how to work with modern techniques. So, this bottling processes was very important and new for me. This so-called cold, sterile bottlings. So, and yeah, it was very useful for me.
And those things didn't exist in Georgia?
Yeah.
They didn't exist in Georgia?
No. Because it was just shortly after collapse of Soviet Union. And that time, Georgia still was using these old equipments and old techniques and technologies. Yeah.
Tell us a little about the grapes. You said there are 525. I've read 627, as many as 627. But does anybody know how many there are precisely in Georgia? Where did you come up with the figure of 525?
Yeah, it's described in our ampelography that so we have 525 endemic varietals. At present, nearly 30 are used commercially. And the reason why so small number is stagnation in Soviet times. So at present, not nearly exactly 470 wines are planted in the nursery of Gigaura, the most extensive research center for viticulture in Georgia. I'm sure that you visited
I've been there.
Center.
I went there with you. Yeah. We went there together. Look at it.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah. I mean, most of these grapes, I mean, you've mentioned Saperavi and Ricasatelli being grown in other countries in Ukraine, and Ricasatelli is grown quite extensively in other bits of what we call Eastern Europe and the Caucasus. But a lot of those grape varieties, the 525, are only grown in Georgia, aren't they?
Yeah.
And why does Georgia, where does that resource come from? Why does Georgia have so many grape varieties? Because some of them have been there, 6,000 years?
So it's from ancient times. Yeah. So you know that. Georgia has very rich history of grape growing. Yeah. So it's almost 8,000 years, and first domestication happened in Georgia of wild wines. I mean.
And do we think that Georgia is the oldest wine producing country in the world? I mean, I think Armenia sometimes claims that as well, doesn't it?
Definitely. So what I know is that this evidence is what founded in Georgia proves that Georgia is the oldest one. But you know, it's just very short distance between Armenia and Georgia. So maybe later someone will find another evidences. So I'm not sure about this. So, but at present, so it's proved that Georgia is how to say the birthplace of cultural wine, Vitis Vinifera.
Yeah. Tell us a bit more about Georgia as a winemaking country, because some people won't have been there. They won't really have a very fixed idea of where it is. Just tell us about its major climatic influences and how many hectares does it have?
Georgia is a small country, but at the same time it's very diverse in terms of grape growing and climatic zones. And Georgia is split in two parts, western part and eastern part. And in the middle, we have the central part, which is also very important for grape growing and winemaking. So here in Kakheti, we have drier climate. Its climate is moderate continental, with quite cold winter and hot summer. So with approximate rainfalls with 700 millimeters. And the western part is close to subtropical conditions, and they have high humid climate with a lot of rainfalls above the 2,500 millimeters. So imagine what is it's a huge difference between western and eastern part of Georgia.
And the west is influenced by the Black Sea, and the east is and the east you're much closer to the Caucasus Mountains, aren't you?
Exactly,
it's higher as well.
Yes.
I mean, I think Georgia's about the size of the Republic of Ireland for anybody listening in the UK.
It's nearly 70,000 square kilometers.
Yeah. And I read somewhere that it's got 7 different climatic zones and 49 soil types, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
it's very diverse.
It's very diverse,
And which is the dominant soil type? Is there one soil type? I think there's where you are in Kakheti, which is the biggest wine region. There's a lot of limestone, isn't there?
Yeah, if we are talking about subsoil, so here we have a lot of volcanic subsoils, black basaltic sediments, and as well as calcareous sediments, which came from ancient sea. It's sediments from ancient sea.
So you find fossils, do you?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, Georgia always strikes me as a very European country in a way. I mean, it's obviously located in the Caucasus, and your neighbours are Turkey and Armenia and Azerbaijan and obviously Russia to the north. I think it was called the Italy of the Soviet Union, wasn't it, at one point? Is wine part of everyday culture in Georgia, like music and rugby are?
Yes, exactly. So Georgia is a really European country. So geographically, so Europe starts in Georgia. So we are on the intersection of Asia and Europe.
Because the Turks say that. Don't they too?
And really, Georgians like wine, so it's wine is consumed, I would say, almost every day, so we have absolutely good food. Regarding the food, so I would say so it's a mixture between Asian and European cuisines. So we like a lot of spices, greens, so vegetables.
Did the wine culture suffer a little bit during the Soviet period? The Soviet period was 1921 to 89.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So we faced with some with really troubles during Soviet era.
What happened?
A lot of terror out of this Soviet regime. So a lot of people were killed. A lot of people escaped from this regime, and all these terrible things influenced to wine industry and to wine developments.
So it lost a little bit of what made it so dynamic, did it, under the Soviets?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But thanks to our clever ancestors, so culture was survived. Particularly, I'm talking about winemaking culture.
And it survived in the villages, did it? Presumably,
in villages, mostly in villages. Yeah. They transformed this culture into big monster industry. Yeah. So where in Soviet era, in Soviet Union, most important was volumes, not quality, and the focus was to produce as much as possible.
You've talked about the difference between the western regions close to the Black Sea and the eastern ones like Kakheti, where you're based, and you've talked about the different climates. Do they grow different grape varieties as well? I mean, are the same grape varieties found in the western part and the eastern part, or does the east specialize in certain grapes?
No, the list of Georgian wine varietals is split by region. We have a family of Kakhetian varietals, the biggest representatives of which are Kakheti and Saperavi varietals. List of from Kartli, Mereti, Guria, etc. Yeah. The winemaking industry is connected in the eastern part of Georgia, particularly in the Kakheti region. So if we are talking about Western Georgia, we have to know that just nearly 10% of vineyards and wineries are located in the western part of Georgia. So majority is
in the east.
Yes.
Yeah. And that would be Kakheti and Kartli, wouldn't it?
Yes, Kakheti is the biggest one.
Yeah. I mean, Kakheti is huge, isn't it? I think there are 48,000 hectares in the country and 42,000 are in Kakheti, yeah?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And does Kakheti have different sub-regions? I mean, where depending on whether you're closer or further away from the mountains?
By our law, all grape growing regions are split in PDOs. So at present, we have 24 appellations, and the biggest part, 18 out of them, are located in Kakheti region, so in eastern part. So
18 of 24, yeah?
Yes, exactly.
So they're like the top appellations, yeah?
Yeah. So 2 of them are located in the central part, Ateni and Bolnisi, and 4 in western part. Yeah.
And you work, I think, now at 3 different wineries. There's one called Dakishvili Family, which is obviously your own family's vineyards. But you're also the winemaker at Shushman and Orgo, aren't you? I mean, how do these 3 projects differ? Why are they different?
Yes, that's true. So I work for Schuchmann Wines as a winemaker, and I am also a co-founder of the company. Yeah, Schuchmann Wines is a German investment started by Burkhard Schuchmann, and it's a high-quality industrial winery, with a lot of sales all around the world. So regarding Orgo, Orgo is Orgo cellar is distinguished for making wines from old wines, 50 years and above. And I started this project in 2011. And the winery specializes in quarry winemaking. And it's also very well-known winery in Georgia, and not only so. And Dakishvili Family Selection is a collaborative family project. So I myself, my wife Ilona, and Temuri Dakishvili. So we are three winemakers making everyday decisions at our cellar.
So your son is a winemaker. Your wife
Elder
is a winemaker.
Son, yes. Yeah. My wife Ilona, she's winemaker as well. Yeah.
And you have a younger son who's also trained to be a winemaker. So it could be four of you.
Yeah, he started his study of enology just 2 years ago. And so he decided, without any kind of pressure from my side and from Ilona's side. So it's his decision. Good. We have exception, my daughter. So she graduated university, faculty of medicine, medical faculty. And she, at present, she works as a medical doctor. Yeah,
that's good. Somebody has to make some money, right?
Money, and she takes care about our health, and yeah,
exactly. Tells you not to drink so much.
Yeah.
Listen, let's talk a bit more about the main grapes of the country, because Rkatsiteli is the most planted white grape in Georgia. I think it's 81% of all the white plantings. How do you get the best out of it? Is it Georgia's best white variety? I don't think it is, but I mean, what do you think? Is it the best white variety?
I would say Rkatsiteli is one of the best varieties. Yeah, one of them, because we have another number of excellent varietals. The reason why Rkatsiteli is so popular and so spread is maybe because
it's easy to grow.
Yeah, it's one reason. It's quite resistant to diseases, so it's one reason. The second is it demonstrates structural strengths. For example, in quarry wines, so it's a very fresh. If it's used for white wine, light-bodied white wine production, so it's absolutely good varietal for different styles. Yeah. So a significant amount is used for distillation, for brandy production.
Okay. Yeah. And which other white varieties should people look out for? There's some that are my favourites, but I'll let you tell me what your favourites are other than Rkatsiteli.
I would say so. I like very much Kisi. Kisi is very unique, very elegant variety. So we have as well Tsoani Kahuri. It's one of the best. It's
Kikvi. Do you like Kikvi?
Kikvi as well. Sure. Kikvi is very aromatic. So it's very fresh. Express a lot of aromas, different profiles, starting from floral to tropical and citruses, and it's very rich. Yeah.
I mean, the kind of king of Georgian grapes is Saperavi, a red grape, obviously, and it's the most planted red variety. Absolutely. I think it's world class. I'm sure you agree. I think it's the best Georgian grape. What makes it so special? Because it's quite tannic and it has high acidity, doesn't it? I mean, just tell me about working with Saperavi, how you get the best out of Saperavi.
Yeah, it's absolutely true that Saperavi is known as a world-class grape variety. So it's Saperavi belongs to family of Tenturier, so it's the flesh and pulp is colored, and it's very rich with aromas and with phenolics, positive, elegant phenolics. I mean, as a Rkatsiteli, Saperavi is very terroir sensitive grape, and it shows a variety of strengths from place to place. It's also maintains different levels of acidity with a high content of malic acid. And so I always support the malolactic fermentation to eliminate this malic acid and to produce more balanced and velvety taste. Yeah, so it's very important to pass through malolactic fermentation. Yeah.
And which other red varieties should people look out for from Georgia?
So I would say if we are talking about structure and rich tannins, so I would say Otshanuri Sapere is one of the best. For fruity red wines, elegant style wines, so maybe Alexandrouli and Mujuratuli, which are endemic varietals from Racha Lechhumi.
And where's that in the country? Is that at the centre or in the west?
It's the western part of Georgia.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Qvevris now, because I think a lot of people listening will be fascinated by this. You're one of the best exponents of Qvevri winemaking, and I've enjoyed tasting with you because I've learnt a lot about Qvevri winemaking from you. Tell us a bit more about them. And when were they first used in Georgia? Are they very ancient? Do we know?
It's absolutely ancient. It has history more than 6,000 years. And Qvevri was used for fermentation and for maturation. And still is used as a vessel for fermentation and for maturation as well. Yeah.
And what are they made from?
It's a clay and sand. Yeah, it's two components are mashed later after adding of water, and it's handmade vessel.
And how large are they? Because they vary in size, don't they? Quite significantly.
Yeah, starting volumes starts from 20 liters up to 5,000 liters. So the biggest ones are used for blending and for as a storage. Yeah, not for fermentation, because it's not good for fermentation. Yeah.
And how are they different from amphoras? Is it because they're always buried in the ground? Or is it the shape?
So it's placed underground because of this temperature control reasons. Qvevri is so sorry. Did you ask about differences between Qvevri and amphora?
Yes. Yeah. Is it because they're buried?
Yeah. Yes. And amphora is used and was used for transportation mostly. Yeah.
So they're different shapes, amphoras and Qvevris?
Yeah. Amphora is a Greek, so Qvevri is a Georgian, Amphora,
but they're similar.
Considered for transportation, and the Qvevri is purely for winemaking.
And are Qvevris always lined with beeswax? Do you always use beeswax inside the clay?
It's not mandatory. There are several opinions. What is best? To line or to avoid lining. The winemakers argue about this, and so I'm a supporter to line because of hygienic reasons.
I mean, people who've never been to Georgia assume that everybody's using Qvevri, but the style of wine, I think it's only 1% of production, isn't it? Just tell us a little bit about the process, because they're fermented on skins, aren't they? Just tell us about how long you leave them on skins, and do you control the temperature, or is the temperature controlled by the fact that it's buried in the ground?
No, we can't influence, so we can't control. So everything is done by nature and by soil. This soil is the best chilling system for these amber styles and for Qvevri wines.
And it's always skin contact. Both reds and whites, you ferment the wines with skins in the Qvevri. Well, reds obviously.
No restrictions. So some winemakers use Qvevri for normal classical styles. Some wines are fermented without skins. But generally, Qvevri is considered for skin contact wines.
And what are the challenges of making wines in qvevris? I mean, I read somewhere that there are 7 different tools for cleaning them. Is cleanliness an issue?
Yes, one of the issues is a hygiene, because it's a really hard job to clean qvevri, and so it takes nearly 3-4 hours to clean one qvevri. I'm talking about qvevris which are with volume 2,000 liters. Yeah, so it's absolutely manual work, and the second is, so there is no leverage to control winemaking processes. So it's just vessel, and what we do, just punch down to the floating cap to extract more phenolics and colors and aromas out of skins, and that's it. Yeah, there is no computers. No cooling systems.
No computers, nothing mechanized. Yeah. And what do qvevris give you in return? Do they give you softer tannins? Or what do they give you exactly?
So, it's softer tannins. Fermentation goes in not in a constant way. I mean, in terms of temperature, so we have different temperatures. So as a rule, fermentation starts at 18 degrees, and it goes up to 30 degrees. So, and in different stages of fermentation, wine gets different aromas. So, and we get this complexity, what is very important for amber wine.
Yeah. Is there a qvevri taste? Do you think? I mean, I think some people mistakenly think that what we call funkiness, a little bit of dirtiness, is part of the qvevri, but it's not, is it?
No. Yeah, if something comes from qvevri, so it's already negative. Yeah, so qvevri must be neutral. It has to be clean. It must be sterile before grapes are placed inside. Yeah, and this is very important. Yeah.
So things like volatility and Brettanomyces and that mousiness you get sometimes in qvevri, those are faults, obviously, aren't they?
Absolutely, this is a fault. Yeah.
And tell us about amber wines in general. I mean, what percentage of Georgia's wines are amber wines? Because amber wines can be made in stainless steel, not just in qvevri, can't they?
No, we have kind of understandings that amber wine must be made in qvevri. Yeah. So there is another direction. To be honest, it's a bit confusing for me. This is orange wine. Yeah. Orange wine can be made in stainless steel or in old barrels.
That's interesting. An amber wine has to be made in qvevri for you, absolutely, whereas an orange wine can be made in any container. It just needs to have skin contact, yeah?
Yes.
Are these wines becoming more popular? You said that qvevri stars we've said that qvevri stars are only 1%. Is that going to change? Do you think more people are starting to drink them?
It's very niche product, yeah. So it's very special. So I like very much qvevri style, yeah. So a lot of tannins, but generally it's not easy to understand. Yeah, needs time for wine lover to understand this style.
Yeah, I think it's happening because they work well with food. I think, don't you? I mean, because of that structure.
Yeah, structure and aromatic profile is very different from white wines. Yeah, it's very gastronomical style. Yeah, and it has to be paired with good food, with good cuisine and sorts.
So you don't think we could get to a position where the 10% of Georgia is qvevri? It's too difficult to make in a way? Is it because of the cleaning it involves?
Yes, it's not easy to make high quality qvevri wines because there are a lot of risks during winemaking, and generally, so qvevri wines are made by wild fermentation, by spontaneous fermentation, and malolactic fermentation as well done by wild bacteria. Yeah,
so you have to know what you're doing, don't you? You've got to be a very good enologist.
Yeah.
It's almost as if your knowledge of the chemistry and the biochemistry has to be better. Yeah.
Sure. Without this experience, I mean, the theoretical experience, it does not work. Yeah, it's almost impossible to get high quality wines. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the future. I mean, Lisa Granick, Master of Wine, whose book on Georgian wine is extremely good, guys. If you're listening, well worth buying. She said in the book that Georgia's history and geographical position often make it difficult to engage in long-term planning, in other words, to think forwards. How do you see Georgian wine developing over the next 20 years? I mean, and well, what about the country? I mean, are you worried about Russia again, do you think, right now?
Russian market remains as a main market for Georgian wines. So, to be honest, I would wish to gain more Western markets, and so this is my focus. Yeah.
And what about a Russian invasion? Are people in Georgia? I mean, part of the country is occupied by Russia, isn't it? Are you worried that could become a bigger part of the country?
Sorry, team. So please.
Are you worried about Russia?
When Russian troops are just 100 kilometers from my town, to be honest, I feel very uncomfortable. Yeah, not only me, so whole Georgia is under stress. Yeah.
Do you think Georgia will join the European Union?
So it's our focus, it's our intention to be a part of European Union, and I hope very much that. So we will get it. Yeah.
I'd like to say we hope so too, but we're not in it anymore, at least for the time being. So I'm sure they hope it, because Georgia is
absolutely different case, team. So no similarities. Yeah.
But it was nice when I was in Tbilisi earlier this year.
You are far away from Russia.
Yeah. But it was nice when I was in Tbilisi this year with you to see the flags flying. You get the Georgian flag and the European Union flag flying side by side. Yeah.
So biggest part of our citizens and population are willing to join EU, and early or late. So I'm very much sure that we will do this. Yeah.
Well, fingers crossed. The last question I want to ask you about is, how do you get away from wine? I mean, are you musical? Because lots of Georgians seem to play musical instruments. Almost everybody I meet seems to be a good singer. Is that you?
I prefer to listen, yes. Yeah, and I like our folklore and polyphonic music, so it's absolutely amazing. But I like international music as well, rock, so I like different styles. Yeah.
And how do you get away from wine? What do you do to relax?
What do you mean? So relax out of
out of wine. How do you get away from wine? Yeah.
So I like wine. So and every day, starting from the morning time till to bedtime. So yes.
Wine is your life. Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely yeah.
Yeah. And the good thing is that your children are going to take over from you, right? You've got both of your sons, or one son's already in the business and the other is going to go into the business. Yeah.
Yeah. They continue. Yeah. It's me. I myself, I continue business what was started my and sisters and my father. So it's
So the Dakishvilis are going to go on, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Thank you, Giorgi. It's been fantastic talking to you. Thank you in particular for discussing Qvevri with us, because I think there's a lot of misunderstandings about Qvevri, not least by people like me. But I think it's really great to get somebody who's a master of Qvevri explaining to them. Anyway, I hope to see you very soon in Georgia, definitely next year, but maybe in the UK. You never know. Come over and sell your wine in the UK, because they're imported by Clark Forster, aren't they?
Exactly. They are our good partners in the UK, and yes.
Fantastic. Thank you, Giorgi. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
I don't know about you, but I learnt a lot about the Georgian wine scene there, most notably about Qvevri. Next week on Cork Talk, my guest is the wine collector and connector, Queen Wong. Join me then. Thanks for listening to Cork Talk. If you want to read more reports, articles and tasting notes by me, go to my website, timatkin.com. You can also follow me on Twitter, @timatkin, and on Instagram, @timatkinmw. See you next week.